My name is Daniel Branco. I'm a neurologist and neuroscientist who has spent a lifetime pursuing a deeper understanding of consciousness. And this is the High Consciousness Podcast. The title of today's talk is Imagination is More Real Than Reality. Think about it. Everything around me right now, from this computer and this camera that I'm using to record this video, to these clothes, to this house, to the lighting, everything, even this podcast itself, every little object that is part of my experiential reality right now, at some point in time, was just an idea in someone's imagination. Think of anything you might want to have, a car, a house, all of that also started in someone's imagination, in the imagination of a designer or architect in those cases. You want to be the best in sport. All sports were invented first in imagination. Every invention and every innovation comes from imagination. Everything that humans create at some point was just an idea in imagination. Now, how about the things we didn't create, like this planet or the universe or biology and nature itself? Science says it all came from a blip. I like to think it all came from a blip of imagination. Whose imagination? God's imagination itself? Maybe imagination is God because imagination is creation. So imagination might be creating itself. If you can think it, you can do it. Well, if that's true of humans, it's probably even truer of God, whatever God means. Maybe the most fundamental reality is not that of subatomic particles. Maybe the most fundamental reality is actually imagination. Physical particles being just an offspring of imagination. Again, at the root of this conversation is the duality between objective and subjective realities. Either the brain is creating consciousness or consciousness is creating the brain. Either particles came first and conscious beings capable of creating realities came later, or maybe the universe is the creation of a very imaginative, conscious being, which some would call God. Maybe the entire physical universe exists in God's imagination, which would be equivalent of to saying that essentially and fundamentally the whole universe exists within a great imagination or a great consciousness. You see, the problem with God is the meaning of the word. It's the meaning we attach to the word God. If God is to be understood as an old man in the sky, science will have an issue with that idea. But if God is understood as a quantum fluctuation that causes a big bang, then it's all good. God is good to go and to exist scientifically. It really depends on how you define God. It always amazes me when people ask, do you believe in God? Without asking first, what does God mean to you? And then another person will answer right back, yes or no, I believe in God. No, I'm an atheist. Well, what does that even mean? Does an atheist believe in their own imagination or their own creation? Because if you believe yourself to be a creator, how do you justify prima facie the inexistence of a higher creator than you? The problem is that nobody ever defines what God is or means in those conversations. Everybody simply assumes they know exactly what they're talking about and what the meaning the other person is attaching to the word God. But they don't. And we can do better than that. We don't because the word God is loaded with meaning. And meaning, guess what? Only exists in imagination. Science doesn't know meaning. Only conscious beings can attach meaning to words because words with meaning carry feeling, and only conscious beings can feel. But how can you feel if how can you tell if what you feel about God is the same as do others? How can people engage in endless discussions about science versus religion if they don't even know what they're talking about? The polarization between science and religion is a distracting one. It keeps us away from more important understandings. One such understanding being that we are beings endowed with imagination. If God is almighty because he or she or they created everything, then there's no escape to the conclusion that we are also little gods because we certainly are capable of creating little things. As above, so below. Whether religion or science has the answer becomes less relevant. Both schools of thought are just trying to control the narrative. But behind the narrative is the very plain fact that you are creator. You exist in and as imagination. You can build not only your own path in your own life, you can build your own reality. I'll tell you what, science and religion are essentially the same thing. They are essentially dogma based belief systems. The only thing is that in science, dogma is disguised as method, but the assumptions of the method are very much dogmatic. For example, that reality is fundamentally based on matter and physical particles. That's a dogma. That by understanding the parts, you can understand the whole. That's a dogmatic premise. Or that data convey the full story about reality. Dare to question data. Oh no, Daniel, but science can prove stuff and is repeatable. And I agree, but you'll also find people who pray and get things done too, repeatedly. People get direct confirmatory proof of their faith all the time. Clearly, we need a better system, a better understanding of what reality really is. And where do we find that? Take a guess. Yourself, in your own imagination. We need to dream up a new system. There should be a way to merge science and religion into something new and better, something that combines the two and evolves from the two, because we are beings of meaning. Science without meaning is just data. You have a rock that crashes into another rock, and now you have millions of smaller rocks expanding forever in outer space, all perfectly described by science and physics. But who cares? That is only relevant if it is meaningful. And meaning is the wheelhouse of religion. It is time for science to come to terms with the fact that it is not really very good at providing people with meaning or meaningful answers. Science is great for technological advancement, but for anyone paying attention, just look around. Technology doesn't bring meaning, not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily mean happiness or accomplishment, because meaning is something to be found only in consciousness. Only spiritual beings care about meaning. Only spiritual beings have consciousness. Only spiritual beings have imagination. Does AI have imagination? I don't know. How can someone possibly know that? That's the $1 trillion question these days. Is science equipped to answer this question? Probably not, as it stands today, based on the assumptions that it uses today. But what if science changes its assumptions? What if it stops assuming physical particles to be at the base of reality? What if it starts considering consciousness to be to being fundamental? Well, in that case, you know, you no longer have science, you have spirituality. So maybe it's time for us to stop the polarization between science and religion and replace that drama with something new. Maybe it's time for us to start developing our spirituality. Not religiosity, but spirituality. But what does that look like? What does it mean to be spiritual? Well, first of all, it starts by adopting a different assumption. Instead of assuming that God is fundamental or that matter is fundamental, perhaps we could assume that above and before all, we are fundamental. We are conscious beings that simply exist. We don't exist because of our brain or our body or the particles that constitute them. We simply exist by definition as an assumption. We exist as consciousness and in consciousness or as imagination. You don't need to assume that matter is the origin of all existence, that it is the origin of consciousness. If assumptions are just that, assumptions, then you are free to use whatever assumption you like. Choosing to believe you simply exist, first and foremost, doesn't make you any more of a believer than a scientist who believes we are just a bunch of atoms. Both takes on reality are based on irreducible and unprovable, and that's very important, unprovable assumptions. Assuming you exist first and foremost is an extremely powerful assumption. Just like assuming matter is fundamental gave us amazing technology, assuming you exist, regardless of your body, regardless of your brain, gives you yourself, your own unconditional existence. It gives us immense freedom and power. If we are the creators of our own reality, if we are the creators of our bodies, even, nothing else is impossible. We are no longer afraid of dying. We no longer lack the resources. We don't lack money. We have everything we need within ourselves. By assuming our existence as consciousness is fundamental, we become the creators of our own reality. We live in these physical bodies on this planet out of our own volition. But Daniel, this sounds cool and all, but it really is very ethereal and disconnected from reality. I'm sorry, Daniel, but this is all your imagination. To which I say again, imagination is more real than reality. If you think imagination is ethereal, almost like non existent, think again. Objective reality may not seem that fluid as imagination does, but it is certainly malleable and plastic. We are all changing our realities all the time. Every little emotion we feel changes our experience of objective reality. Even if it doesn't change the reality itself, changes our experience of reality. And what is more real than our experience of reality? It makes us act on objective reality to change it in a certain way. Every feeling does that. Every emotion makes us act on objective reality to change it in a certain way. Consensus reality is just the result of the manipulation of reality by a multitude of conscious beings. We have all built our lives around our dreams, and our dreams only exist in imagination. Try and assume that you are fundamental, that your imagination is primary and fundamental. You're not your body, you're not your brain, you're not your circumstances, you're not your name, you're not your job, you're not your titles. You can't ever die because who you are is imagination. All those other things are just creations in imagination. Persona, character in the stage of physical reality. In you, you are the creator, not the creation, not the character. Or you may understand that you are dualistically creator and creation. You are a creator within the creation of an even higher creator. Just like our created reality or conscious reality can have dualistic creator creation creatures as well, of which AI, who knows, might be an example. AI is a creation, right? We created it. And it creates. AI is capable of creating. It surely shows some creative skills, but we are its creator. So there we have it. Being an AI that is both creation and creator at the same time. What matters for our society and our leaders is the understanding that we are creators endowed with imagination. We are powerful masters and creators. And one goal of this podcast is to help you help others unleash their full potential as creators for the greater benefit of all. The new leader understands that we are not independent and isolated individuals, each simply with its own body and physical existence, each body or each company competing with each other for resources and survival of the fittest. This thing of the survival of the fittest is a great, regretful interpretation of reality brought up to us by scienticism. It's not necessarily wrong in its own context, but it's not a directly expendable notion to all contexts. Within the assumption that we exist fundamentally, regardless of a body, there is no pressing need for survival or for competition. There is opportunity for collaboration and transformation of physical reality into something interesting and better by using our innermost essence, which is imagination. Imagination is at the root of all creation, be it a new product in the market or the universe itself. Everything comes from imagination. And it's time for us to stop imagining lack and start imagining abundance, to stop imagining wars, to start imagining exploration, to stop imagining competition, to start imagining collaboration. After all, we all already live in our own realities in consciousness. Physical reality is just an interface that allows for immortal and fundamental consciousnesses to interact with each other in physical form. There is no reason for us not to turn consensus reality, that is, physical reality, into something more beautiful and expanding. All it takes is imagination, because imagination is more real than reality. If you like this subject and want to be better prepared to debate this and other videos in this channel, check out my book, Spirituality, Spiritual Initiation for Rational People. And if you'd like to keep exploring these ideas and watching more videos on them, please give us a like and subscribe, hit the bell, do all of that. We are a very young channel and your support is very much appreciated. Let's improve the experience of life for everyone on this planet. See you next time.